Good day, my valued students. Today I'm going to share with you some amazing production techniques of how to work smart with HTML5 and CSS3 rules using Dreamweaver Creative Cloud. Now, if you're not using Dreamweaver Creative Cloud, it's been out since May of last year. I highly suggest that you don't invest time in old software. If you want to be serious about this and you want to be professional, just like a surgeon or a high-end carpenter, invest in the most current tool set. Don't spend time learning CS6, CS5 because you say, oh, I can't afford the software. Well, if you can't afford the software, you're in the wrong business. Basically, for $29 a month, you can get the software and you pass that cost on to your client anyway. So definitely take advantage of the new Creative Cloud software. Don't work backwards with the older software. Now, many of the techniques I will share with you, you can do in Adobe Dreamweaver CS6, but the interface for building CSS and CSS3 and media queries is very different. So one thing we can't replace is time. We can always make more money, but we can't replace time. So don't waste time learning old software. Now we're going to start with this page here, and we're going to build it out using HTML5 tags, article tags, rounded corners, drop shadows. I'm going to share with you my simple production techniques of how we can get this done without writing a stitch of code by hand. Now, before we begin the course here, indulge me for a second. I want to talk about a couple of things. First of all, you can get this entire course. I clicked the wrong one. You can get this entire course here. You basically have less than 12 hours to decide, so the clock is running. You get this course right now. If you use this code, you'll get it for 70% off. But I have a code down at the bottom that beats Udemy's prices for this particular course, by the way. You can get this course for $49, normally $199. This is my full complete Adobe Creative Cloud for mobile apps and mobile devices from start to finish. Now, in addition to that, if you know anything about my training, I continually add to my courses. So this course will organically continue to grow and grow month after month after month after month. So I'm always coming up with new techniques and new ideas and new better understandings of how to do things the right way. Now, in addition to that, what you should really do if you can afford this is sign up for my all access course, which is this one. Boy, I should probably rehearse this next time. So you can get my all access course right now for $479. Now, for many of you out there, you might think, well, that's a lot of money. Well, considering that, I can point you to a lot of online colleges that will be more than happy to charge you $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. I've talked to those people. I've had students that have gone to these crazy, insane $40,000 online courses. They didn't learn the software. So this is a fraction. So not only are you going to learn the software the right way, you're not going to spend an arm and a leg. Hey, it's a credit card payment. $479 gives you my complete all-access course, 36 current courses, and all my future courses for life, plus free updates. Now, if you can't do that, then definitely sign up and take advantage of Udemy's Start Today campaign, which basically you can go, and I'll put a link down here at the bottom. For 70% off, you can get any of my single courses. Now, if you do want my Dreamweaver Creative Cloud course that I just discussed, which is part of today's lesson, by the way, then I highly suggest you take advantage of 75% off. That basically I'll have a coupon code at the bottom. I'm sorry, for this, there is no coupon code. You basically put in Start Today. Remember, Start Today has 2 T's in there, because some of you say, oh, the coupon's not working. Well, because you spelled Start Today with 1 T. Start Today has 2 T's. So that concludes today's spelling class. So thank you very much for being here. Let's roll up our sleeves, crack our knuckles, and understand how to work smartly. Is that a word, smartly? Effectively, efficiently, using CSS rules and HTML5 tags for SEO. So what I'm about to share with you is how to basically build an SEO-friendly site that's also responsive design and also is built the correct way, because I'm doing it and I'm sharing with you how to build the correct way. So stay tuned. Good day once again. Okay, so let's get started with this particular design here. Now, pay no attention to the color scheme. This is something I just happened to whip together, etc., etc. Here's the objective. I want to share with you how to work smart building HTML5 tags and applying CSS rules in CSS3. CSS3 mainly is for things like drop shadows and rounded corners and media queries. So the objective here is to work smart, to not have to reinvent the wheel and squeeze the sponge out of your time, because basically time is money. So here's what I like to do. Very important to understand for SEO purposes. The reason HTML5 is so HTML friendly, or SEO friendly I should say, versus earlier versions, is before was the Wild West. I mean, before everything was based on div tags. Now it has some kind of structure to it, which means that your header information goes inside the header tag. Now, we're still going to be able to use div tags for certain things like the wrapper tag, etc., etc. But now there's actual physical elements that all websites can now follow, which is cross-platform and cross-device. So as an example, here's the aside tag. That's not a made-up word, it's an HTML actual aside tag. Now, the advantage of using CC, Creative Cloud Dreamweaver, is that those tags are actually built into the application. So there's little to no hand coding. In fact, I'm not going to show you any hand coding. All this can be done with simple point and click techniques. That's my whole battle cry. To simply squeeze the sponge on the software, because time is money. You can always make more money, but you can't make more time. Once that second is gone, it's gone. So here's what I want to share with you. I have inside my section tag. Now let's think about what you would put inside of a section tag. So you can have a section of different types of things on your site. So as an example, you can have a sports section and a baking section and a current affairs section and maybe a how-to section, etc., etc. Those are different things that you may choose to put into your section tag. Now a section tag could basically, I just want to share this with you, you could technically put the aside and the article inside the section. I choose not to do it that way. The aside tag is actually, if you look at your tree here, the aside tag is basically inside the wrapper tag. But the section tag is inside the wrapper tag, but the article tag itself is inside the aside tag. So therefore, the section tag is the parent. It's still a parent-child relationship as far as building. So as an example, if I go to my file menu, I'm not tied to a web server right now. I'm just going to do this locally to save some time here. So you'll notice that these are both HTML H1 tags rather, but this H1 tag is smaller by default because it's a parent-child relationship. So I just wanted you to understand and kind of get that into your thinking process. So let's roll up our sleeves and get started here. So here's what I want you to do as far as thinking smart and not reinventing the wheel. So here's our objective. Here's what I want to be able to accomplish. Right now I have an article tag. Now I don't have an article rule. We're going to create an article rule in just a second for this. But what the client would like to do, a couple of things. First of all, the client would like the article to have rounded corners, and maybe they're not sold on the idea, but maybe they want to put a drop shadow. Or maybe they want to put a drop shadow on the title of the article, etc., etc. So we're going to share with you how to do that in today's lesson, today's free lesson. Okay, you can get the entire course on udemy.com, which I have a special deal running for $49. Again, just like you don't work for free, I technically don't work for free either, but at the same time, I encourage you to support me so I can support you and buy my courses on Udemy. You'll get free upgrades, etc., etc. All right, so here's what we want to do. In order to affect the tag, we need to select the tag, which I've done. Now keep in mind, I'm in Dreamweaver CC. Dreamweaver CC visually is very different than CS5, CS5.5, and CS6 when it comes to creating CSS rules. So what we'll need to do here is select the tag, select the source, and then hit the plus symbol. And I don't want to, this is totally up to me, but in this particular case, I don't want to include the wrapper. I simply want to say section article. So I'm going to target that article inside of this section. So as an example, I can have an article tag that's part of my aside tag. I can have an article tag that's part of my header tag. I could do that. So in this particular case, I'm targeting the article tag inside the section tag. Now here's what I'd like to be able to do. I want to have, or the client wants to have, because that's basically what your objective is, to please the client. The client wants to run two articles across the space between point A and point B. So if I bring up my rulers for a second, Command Option R or Control Alt R for Windows, I'm just going to drag a guide and just put a guide right there so you can see what I'm talking about. Now if I hold down the Command key for Macintosh or the Control key for Windows, you can actually see the distance between point A and point B. Okay, so wherever you put your cursor, that's going to tell you the distance. Now if I get rid of this guide here, and I'm just going to drag it off to the left, holding down the Command key, that's going to show me the distance between the edge of my document and that particular guide. Now that could be helpful when placing graphics and building custom CSS. That's for another course at this time, which is actually part of my full course on Udemy of how to do that. So here's what we're going to do. We already have select the style. We're going to go back and select the article inside of section. And here's, I want to have two of these. So rather than reinvent the wheel here and figure out, okay, what's the distance between point A and point B, 685 divided by 2, that's too much work. A. B, what if the client changed the width of your device, or basically of your design, or it's at a different width device? So you don't want to work in pixels, you want to work in percentages. Very important step, we want to work with percentages. So we're simply going to take this, and for the width of this, we're going to make this be 50%. So let's just type in percentages, and let's type in 50. Now, obviously, we're not going to see anything really happen here because there's no extra article tag. So here's a very simple way to create additional articles. Now, you can do it from here, but in the interface in Dreamweaver, it's going to be much more simplistic if you copy and paste in code mode. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to go to code mode, make sure just the article is selected. I'm going to copy that, Command-C, Control-C, and I'm just going to hit the return key with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to have a total of 6 articles. Now, 6 articles, which means I will have 2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, now, important step here. The article, yes, is set up to 50%. But why is the other article not going over here if, in fact, this is set to 50%? Okay, well, part of the reason is that in order for something to go to the right of something, this needs to float to the left. If I wanted something to go to the left of something, I would float that to the right. So let's select the tag, let's go back to our source, and let's select that particular article tag. And based on these choices, because software simply comes down to choices, we're going to float this to the left. Okay, now, we did exactly what I told you to do. We want to float that to the left, that's 50%, and it's still not working. Why is it not working? Well, let's understand something. The way that I set this up, and I share this technique in a different video on YouTube, but more importantly, it's part of my All Access Pass, and it's also part of my Dreamweaver Creative Cloud. But it's getting its marching orders from this set of instructions right here, which is header, nav, section, article. So this is basically saying float left, clear left. Well, so therefore an article is never ever going to come up here unless I'm smart enough to understand what I'm doing, go back to my article tag, and based on these choices, we don't want to clear. So we're going to say clear none. Okay, and that's going to put the article right there where it should be. Pretty cool. So if I go to File and I preview in browser, Firefox, so now I have my different article tags, article, 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 article. Now keep in mind that this content happens to be the same height and width and everything else. Everything's going to work out to our benefit. But in general, you can basically just distinguish the height of this, and I will share with you in my full access Dreamweaver course how you can basically automatically have the overflow show when you roll over the mouse. That's known as css3 transitions, and I go into great detail in my Dreamweaver CC course, which you can get for how much? How much did I say? $49. Normally $199. You get it today for $49. Starting to sound like a carnival act here. Okay, so let's take this one step further. So let's say in addition to making that 50%, I'm going to again select the tag, or to affect the tag, I need to select the tag. Come down here to the article section. Again, that's not, that particular step is not really necessary, but it's just a good habit to get into. In order to affect, you need to select. And I want to change the background color, and based on these choices, I'm just going to change the background color to a very, very palish, kind of greenish kind of color, and hit the return key. Now, this is automatically set up to be 20 pixels because it's getting its marching orders from here. So it has a 20 pixel on the rows. But basically, if you're going to have color or a definitive border on something, a color next to a color, if I go to File again for a second, Preview in Browser, it's not looking all that great. So I probably would want to have some kind of separation to separate these. Or I could put maybe a border here. But in this particular case, I'm going to put 2% of margin space. Margin space is outside of the box. Of course, padding space is inside of the box. So let's go back into our rule structure, into section article. Okay, and let's again select style, select section article, and for the width, now keep in mind something very important. So to the right here, just to the right, we're going to have 2%. Now the reason I'm doing percentages is because I want this to be responsive design. And if I do produce 2% here, it's knocked that out of the box. Why? Well, because the last time I did whole number math, Okay, 50% and 50% and 2% equals 102%. Well, that's not going to work, is it? Because that 2% knocked it out of the box. So here's what I would need to do. I would need to go back to the width of my tag, make sure the tag is selected. In order to affect the tag, we need to select the tag, select the source, go down here again to section article, and for the width, we could simply make that 48%. Therefore, 48% plus 2% times 2, 48% times 2 plus 2 is 100%. So therefore, you're back in the game. Pretty cool. So now if I go to File, Preview in Browser, Firefox, there you go. Now, if in fact you want to do more padding in here, etc., let me share with you a simple way we can do this without splitting hairs. And here's what I mean by that. If I put padding right now inside my article tag, I'm going to have to compensate that by deducting that from the width of the article tag, just like I did a second ago for the width of this. But here's a super cool way around that, that you don't have to divide that math or subtract that math. Now again, my training is all about production techniques. You know, I'm like a mad scientist when it comes to this stuff. If there's a better, faster way to do things, that's what you're paying me for. That you're paying for my experience and knowledge, and quite frankly, for my mistakes. Not when I do the training, by the way. Mistakes that I worked out years and months and decades ago. Okay? So when I'm trying to do something or saying what if, the advantage of taking my courses is you don't have to search the web for all these things. I'm one-stop shopping. I'm going to teach you how to sell, how to market, how to do SEO, how to build a website, how to make money, how to get paid. It's all one-stop shopping. That's what I'm here to help you do. Okay, so let's understand something. For SEO purposes, the first tag of any container tag, let's understand what a container tag is. A wrapper div tag is a container tag. A side tag is a container tag. It's containing the content. A paragraph would not be a container tag. An H1 would not be a container tag. So the first piece of text in any container tag for SEO purposes should be an H1 tag. So this is an H1 tag. Okay, this is an H1 tag. The exception to that is typically footer or nav, but everything else is an H1 tag followed by, in this particular case, an H2 tag. That's going to help you to distinguish the page. Therefore, when Google or Bing or a search engine indexes that page, it's going to know how to find things based on your H1, H2, H3 tags. So right there, there's more money in the bank for you. It's an important step. So let's create a rule structure for an H1 tag when an H1 tag is inside of the article tag. In fact, let's do this. Select the source, hit the plus symbol, and I want to say section, article. Okay, so I want to do a series of things here. So I'm going to say if I have a P, okay, and if I have an H1, comma, and I have an H2, comma, and an H3. I'm not going to put H4 and H5 in here. I'm just going to do it this way. Okay, so what this is basically saying, telling me, is if I have that set up here, if I have a section tag with an article, which I made a new rule structure, I want to basically separate this out. Now, if you'll notice here, if I go back to Preview Browser, Firefox, so this is what I had and this is what I have, but you're not seeing any difference. Why aren't you seeing any difference? Well, Robert, I wrote the rule structure, so why is it not working? Let's examine why that's not working. So any guesses as to why that's not working? Well, obviously it's not working because we haven't written any rules. We basically said we targeted the selectors correctly, but we didn't write any rules. Now here's what I want to share with you, and this is a mistake that you don't want to make. So I set this to be section P, comma, and then comma H1, H2, H3. Now, if I set my padding from the left of this, I'm going to set my padding to be, oh, let's make that 3% to the left. So I'm just going to type in 3% and hit the return key. Now, it affected this inside of this tag, but it also affected this tag, and I don't want to target that tag. So why is it affecting that tag? Well, part of the reason is that this structure is incorrect, and this is the mistake you don't want to make. I want to make a P when P is inside of article when article is inside of side, and have to follow the same scenario. I have to repeat that again, followed by a comma. So the simplest way to fix this, by the way, is to hold down the Control key, or right-click Windows, Control key Macintosh, go to Code. It's going to take you right to your code. I'm going to take that section article, I'm going to copy that, and I'm just going to paste that right there. But I'm going to substitute that with an H1 tag. Then I'm going to paste it again, and I'm going to substitute that with an H2 tag. And just for giggles and whatever, I'm going to just do an H3 tag. Now, I very rarely do an H3 deep inside of an article tag, but just in case I decide to do that, I'm all set. Make a change, save a change. Good habit to get into. Now, the disadvantage of writing the code right there is sometimes it's going to work in the CSS code itself, but Dreamweaver sometimes can't display certain types of code. So what I might suggest you do in that particular case is we're going to take and just copy and paste this. Now, I changed my padding to 10%. So 10% to the left, so I'm going to copy that. Command-C, Control-C, Windows. I'm going to paste that, and we're going to change that to an H1 tag. This way, that it's just less confusing for Dreamweaver sometimes to do this. And in this particular case, I'm going to have this the paragraph's going to be almost indented. I'm going to change that to 5%. So if I make a change, save a change, go back to File, Preview in Browser, and Firefox. So now this is offset 5%, this is offset 10%. Now if you look at this from a design standpoint, it's looking kind of odd because I really maybe should have some margin space here. So I can put another 2% here, but then I'm going to have 2% to the left and 2% to the right, which is going to create 4% here. So the way I'd work and the way I'd probably do that is make it 1%, 1% both left and right. So let's go ahead and do that inside of Dreamweaver. So let's go back into our tag, into our article tag, select the source, go down to the article tag. Here's the P tag, here's the H1 tag. Go to the article tag itself. And the only thing we need to do here is basically, it's still going to be the same percentage, but it's going to be 1% on the right and 1% on the left. Therefore, nothing's going to change as far as the width goes, so we don't have to minus anything, but it's just going to give us some room on the left and the right. So if I go back to File, Preview in Browser, Firefox, so now I have both the left and the right, and it actually looks a lot better that way too, because I have a little bit of breathing room here on the left. Okay, now as far as rounded corners go, this is something you could do in earlier versions of Dreamweaver in CS 5.5 and CS 6, but it was really kind of cumbersome. Right now it's built into the program in a very visual graphic interface, and that's another reason why you want to use Creative Cloud software to do this, especially with Dreamweaver. So let's explore that. See, the whole objective here is you want to basically create a professionally designed responsive design website that's going to work on multiple devices, but you don't want to have to jump through hoops to write code or remember code. That's one more thing you don't want to remember. Now, I know how to do all the code by hand because back in the day, before they had these programs, that's what you had to do. I wish these programs were around now when I was just starting to learn. I could have saved myself 27 years of pulling my hair out at 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so let's select the tag again. Let's select style. Let's go down here to the article tag again, and based on these choices here, okay? Now keep in mind, if you're new to CC, what these are, it's the same list anyway. What these little icons do is go to the different parts of your list. So if you want to look at it this way, this is like a mini website, and these are basically anchor tags that are just going to that part of the page, okay? So if you get to know what these do, they're just going to go right to, like, here's your border, here's your text, here's your background, here's others, which, like, others, what's others about? So for rounded corners, if you scroll down here, you're going to find this right here under border radius. So I can do this very, very quickly by clicking and just dragging. Now, if you want to lock these in so they're all the same, then you simply click right there. And then I can just click from here, and now they'll all be the same border radius. Now, of course, I can give it 3 on the left and 4 on the right and 6 on the bottom left, and et cetera, et cetera. But this is a simple, simple way to do this. I'm just going to make that actually 5 and hit the return key. Now, important to understand, if you want to visually see some of the things actually happen, like drop shadows and rounded corners, Dreamweaver is not going to do that by default unless you do one of two things. Either publish inside of a browser window, whether or not you're on the internet or not, or you can go to live view. So if I go to live view right now, you can now see my rounded corners. Now, this is probably going to need some kind of padding on the top and the bottom because right now my article tag is smashing up against that. Now, there's 2 ways we can cure that. We can do it globally to the article tag itself, or we can basically assign padding to the H1 tag when it's inside the article tag. I would probably opt to do the padding inside of the article tag itself. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go down, select the source, go down to the article, and from the top here, margin space is on the outside, padding is on the inside. So I'm just going to drop this down from the top of about 5 pixels, 5 px. It defaults to pixels, by the way. And that's just going to give you a little bit more breathing room. So if I do go to live view, you'll be able to see this. Okay. Now, as far as things like drop shadow, that's all part of the interface right here inside of Dreamweaver Creative Cloud. So you don't have to do that. But what I do want to share with you is there's some things that you can't see in live view. You have to physically go and open it up inside of a browser. Now, whether or not you're on the internet or not, but you have to physically open that inside of a browser window. Now, one other thing, we're not actually going to have time to go into drop shadows. I don't want to make this long-winded. I've already given you 21 minutes of free training. Imagine that. But here's one final thing I want to share with you with working smart. Now, a couple of things we're not going to do, but I'm just going to talk about. If you, in fact, wanted to have 3 across the page, and it's 100 divided by 3, or 33 1/3, and then you have to make room for the appropriate padding and margin space that you have, etc., etc. Now, also keep in mind, too, that if you're going to go to across and you're going to want to deal with even numbers, which means you're going to want to have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, it's going to be very strange to have 1, 2, 3, unless you could do something like this. You could make the first article your big article up here, and then your second article 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., etc. Now, how would you accomplish that? Let's think about that. In fact, let's do that for a second before we do anything else. Let's say this first article, you want it to basically be a full across the page. Well, if in fact you're going to do that, you're probably going to have an odd number, meaning 7 or 9 or 11. So let's go back to our code for a second. Let's come down here to the bottom. Let's select that article tag. Actually, let's put our cursor here. Let's select that article tag, and I'm just going to copy and paste. Now let's puzzle through this for a second. Let's understand that let's say that this is the most important story and everything else is secondary or tertiary. So I want this article to take up the full width. So how can we possibly do that? Well, we could do that with a class tag, but I think a simpler way to do that would be with an ID tag, because there's only one first. In anything that you do, there's only one first, and one second, and one third. So that's unique. So what we could do is go out of live view for a second, select the tag, and give it an ID. And the ID that I'm going to give this, now keep in mind for IDs or class tags, you can't start with the number, cannot start with a number, but I can type in the word first, as in first article. Now what I would typically do is name the actual tag itself, which is article. If I just type in first what? First paragraph, first div, that's going to really confuse you. When naming IDs, don't just do it for today and tomorrow, but set yourself up for next week, next month, next year, because this might be a site that you haven't touched for months. So how are you going to remember what first meant? What did it mean? So now I can select the tag, and now if I select the style and select the selector, I'm going to say if there is an ID called first article inside of section tag, here's what I want to be able to do to it. I want to make it 100%. So I'm going to say percentages, and I'm going to change that to 100. And just like that is my 100% across the page. Now, here's the important part. Okay? Notice that it's actually overhanging this. So what you'd have to do is minus that over. If you don't want that to be that, you'd have to minus that 100%. So if this is going to be 100%, which it was, let's select that again. Let's select style, go back to the article ID tag, and we're going to have to minus that 2%. So that's actually 98%. And therefore it will fall. It's not going to look odd. It's not going to hang out like the rest. This way it'll look exactly like the rest does. Now, whether or not you want to give this one around a corner, it's totally up to you. If in fact you don't, what you will need to do, which is really important, you're going to have to physically set this to 0. So let's actually do that. So I'm going to have to physically type in 0. Now, keep in mind it says 0, but that's my default. So I would have to physically make sure that that is actually set to 0. Okay, so I just want to be very clear about that. Don't go with default. Default is 0, but I have to physically write it as 0. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So if I go to File, Preview in Browser, Firefox, this doesn't have the rounded corners, but this one does. And again, that's just an idea that you can do. But the most important thing is that's how I talk to my individual tags based on their selector. So one other thing I want to talk about before we go forward and that is how to work smart with your sizes. And what do I mean by that? And this is a really, really important step, and this is really going to make a better CSS developer out of you. Okay, so let's say, again, parent-child relationship. So this paragraph right now is x big. It's x size. You know, whether it's 5 or 10, 20 pixels, whatever it is. But what I want to do is I want to make this considerably smaller if it's inside the section tag. So one of the things I could do is select the tag. Okay, select the tag, or I can actually select the article itself. So I can go back to article, okay, select style, go back to the article tag, and what I'm going to do is say article by default. Article by default's font size. I'm going to select font. So article font size, by default, everything is set to 1M. 1M is whatever my pixel width was set to, or pixel height, I should say. So if my body tag was set to 16 pixels, 1M equals 16 pixels. If my body tag was set to 28 pixels, 1M equals 28 pixels. So in this particular case, for the size, I want to simply say, I want to make it smaller than 1M. I want to make it 0.85 M's. So therefore, this paragraph is going to be smaller than other paragraphs. Okay? So as an example, if I hit the return key and I start putting a paragraph in there, that paragraph by default is going to be bigger than this paragraph. Okay? Because I haven't set the P tag, I basically set everything to be that much smaller. Now, what does that mean? What did I really just do here? Here's a really important step. Okay? What I did is I said if I have a article tag inside of a section, set its font size to X amount. In this particular case, 0.85, 0.65, whatever you want to do. What that's going to do, that's going to talk to your H1, your H2, your H3 through 6, and make it proportionally that much smaller. It's a smart way to do things without creating an overabundance of rules. It's really a smart thing. Do that in your practice. Incidentally, here's what I want to share with you is how the best way to get through my courses. For every 45 minutes of training, you should spend 6 to 8 hours of practice. Let me repeat that. If you're serious about being good at this, and you want to make this stuff second nature, for every 45 minutes of video training, I would highly suggest, you know, X amount of practice, 4 to 6 hours, I wouldn't go nuts with it, but you want to basically practice a lot and learn a little. Learn a little, practice a lot. Learn a little, practice a lot. My name's Robert Farrell. Thank you very much for being here. Once again, I want to point out that you can get my All Access Pass. Click the link in the bottom. There's a special deal for that. You can get my fully inclusive Dreamweaver CC course, full version, which is $199. You can get for $49. And if you don't think $49 is worth for you to have a great skill set, you're going to go out and make money, I would like to think you're going to charge a lot more than $49 for your web development skills. So if you want to learn things the right way and you really think you're going to learn all this stuff for free, check back with me in 6 months and let me know how that's working out for you. If you're here looking at this video, you're here for a reason, and that reason is you're probably miffed and stumbling through your HTML and CSS. Well, I'm going to show you how to do this the right way, but I'm not going to show you how to do everything for free, because you don't work for free. I don't work for free either. My name is Robert Farrell. Thank you very much for being here. Have a great 2014. Carpe diem.